16 is going to be an interesting thing. It's a topic in and of itself. Launching exclusively on PS5. The only concern that I have is if you don't have a PS5, how are you going to avoid spoilers for as long as it takes for the game to come to PC? We don't know if it will ever come to Xbox. I got into a debate. Someone's like, we don't know if they're paying to keep 16 off of the Xbox. I was like, well, based off of a track record, something's happening. Some money's being exchanged. I don't fault Square Enix for selling something that has value. If Sony's willing to pay, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm not going to be mad for Square Enix getting money. I would like that company to continue because I like their games. But that all being said is we know that there will be at least 6 months. We know it's not in this year alone. That means a lot of people are putting their cap on January 2024. But imagine if it's a 6 month to a year exclusivity. How do you avoid spoilers? How do you avoid walking into the room and somebody going like, oh, can you believe Clive? And you're like, like at work or just generally online. I'd love to know do you have a strategy at all? Or are you just going to be like, well, if it gets ruined, it gets ruined?
I really have the memory of a goldfish when it comes to something that I can't immediately relate to my life and like see and understand.
Yeah.
And so the advantage is that like, I don't think it's coming to PC anytime soon. And so by the time it does, whatever you told me, unless I make flashcards, it's gone. I guess it's gone. So like, outside of like a Sixth Sense type moment, it'd be really hard for there to be something that distinctive that's said to me, unless I'm going and consuming that content. Like if I go consume like Final Fantasy 16 lore content, then yeah, I'm gonna it's gonna be presented to me in a way that's gonna stick. But like, just don't do that. So it's fine. You might catch some of the big notes, but what I found is that for me, the way that like my favorite parts of story is never the big reveal, but never the big twist. I like the subtlety. That's the part that I really find myself enjoying. Mm-hmm. The big reveal a lot of times like, and like it's usually when they spend the most graphics and it's all this. It just like I like all the little stuff, the little details and everything. And 16 looks like it's going to have a lot of that. So I doubt those parts are going to be spoiled for me. So I think it just depends on how you consume games. If you're super spoiler sensitive and you intend to go through it and your favorite part is the big emotional moment, those big choices, then that is an argument against why earlier I said don't consume games on day one. Like the best way to not be spoiled is go consume games on day one. Like that's how you avoid it. Or have the memory of a goldfish.
The Final Fantasy 14's community is going to be really interesting as it relates because as 14 goes, there generally is this kind of unspoken rule about spoiling content and how there is a general consensus of trying to help protect new players going through it. Do you think that we might see within streaming's community itself that you stepping into 16 delayed would actually be and make for interesting streaming content so that people, just like with 14, can watch people come through the story and experience that story? That would be something you would consider doing from a story narrative perspective?
It takes all kinds. Like there will be people that do week one, and those will be really great people to have like reviews and initial thoughts and initial reactions, and that'll be great. And there will be people that come back to a game 10 years late. And it's really fun to kind of relive that with them. So like content creation really is kind of unaffected by it because there's winning either way. The only way you miss out on a game is if it just flames out. So like it's a little late to try Anthem. But like that's about it. In which case, okay. So I like if you're somebody that likes reacting to, like if you're a Sevi Web TV and you're doing a great job reliving content and kind of making it your own. Sometimes I argue when I watch Sevi, like the older the better. I want to see him bring a new life to something that I haven't seen in a decade. That's just my personal preference for people like that. So I think it just depends on like what the channel is and kind of what their goal is. I think, Skill Up's really great on the front end. So if I could watch somebody play on the front end, it would be somebody like Skill Up. I think for kind of an analysis standpoint of a Final Fantasy game, Night Sky Prince is somebody that I would look to. But like, it wouldn't shock me if Sebiwebs doesn't get to it for a while, if he doesn't want to, you know, and that'd be okay.
I was muting myself. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Now, as we wrap up get to kind of the final segment of the show, I guess I turn it to chat and to you, Chris. Like, is there anything that's been pressing that you've been you wanted to kind of share or experience? Because my general question to the community right now, if they want to weigh in on what would be the kind of the rule about spoilers, like how soon could we talk about that in a podcast and you guys be okay with it? Anyway, Chris.
2 weeks to a month is 2 weeks to a month is generally the accepted range within gaming. That's long enough that like your work schedule's had a chance to settle down. You've had some weekends, and you've had enough weekends that you've probably had a chance to put some significant time in, right? Because your first day to sit down and play it isn't the day you clear it. So like you're looking at, ideally somebody's had 20 to 40 hours, and so somewhere in that 2 to 4 weeks is like, well, there are people who have cleared it week one, so you got to balance, and like those people can't just be silenced forever. And then coming from the other direction, it's like, okay, well, not everybody can do that week one. So that seems to be like the healthy medium that I see a lot of people argue. I agree with Cloud there. I agree with Pride there. It's just that kind of 2 to 4 weeks. Right now, going into FanFest, I am starting to talk about lore every Thursday live on Twitch with Eorzean Archives. And so we're doing an 11-part series going into FanFest, going over some lore in Final Fantasy and making some comparisons to kind of World of Warcraft, and just understanding how games like this tackle things like geography and physics and religions and politics and player agency and all of that, but all from ideally, as much as possible, a like canonical thing. Though you will have to make some note of like, when was this developed and what else was going on in the world at the time? Because as you noted earlier, like that affects things like in a 2-year cycle. Like if we all decide to stay inside for a while, then 2 years later, you're going to see impacts on game development because it just ripples in. So that'll be every Thursday.
All right, that's going to be exciting for it. Now, as our final topic for today's show, the Screw asks, thoughts on Redfall? And I have played it. I don't think, Chris, you've even bothered or cared to, so I can give my high-level take is that overall, I actually am having fun. I've been excited for it because of vampires and that, but it's filled with bugs, and it then goes to kind of highlight more points against Xbox's acquisition against Bethesda. I think it's not necessarily about the game. It's taken on a life in and of itself, to where, like, if I look at games that I've had a decent experience with, like this is in that category where something like Marvel's Avengers, I ran into far more issues and problems, but that also is the nature of bugs. My experience can vary. Now, I'm also playing it on PC, so I'm not experiencing the 30 frames a second. And to what Phil Spencer said, to what Redfall launched and released, echoes what we were sharing and talking about weeks prior to its launch. Why are they releasing this game? They are not, if they can't release it to 60 frames a second at launch, but they say that's coming later, that tells me they can release it at 60 frames. Why the rush to push this game out now?